Welcome back to Journey, a show where seminarians share their journey to the Catholic priesthood. I'm Steven Caraher, seminarian for the Diocese of Gary, and today I am joined by my fellow seminarian, Zach Glick, another Diocese of Gary seminarian. How are you doing, Zach?
I'm doing well.
It's good. It's good to have you here. You know, it's super awesome for me to have you on here because we are seminarian classmates.
That's
we
right.
came into seminary together 4 years ago, and here we are 4 years afterwards. We still got 2 more years left before the priesthood, 1 more year before diaconate. Is that like crazy?
It is. Time has really flown by.
I know, that's so wild. And we met 4 years ago, but I think one of the most interesting things about us is that we lived we grew up only less than a mile away from each other. We just never. So tell me a little bit about yourself, the back of the baseball card facts, where you grew up, the whole 9 yards there.
Yeah, so grew up in Highlands with Our Lady of Grace Parish for elementary and middle school and Sunday Mass, and Highland High School, and then off to Rose-Hulman for college, studied engineering.
Yeah, excellent. And then you entered into Rose-Hulman and you went into ROTC, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So you're actually a member of the military.
That's right.
Which is kind of crazy because I would never think seminarians could be associated with the military. So how does that work?
So the Air Force has a program where you can become a chaplain candidate and simultaneously be a seminarian, and so you participate in that for all years of seminary, and then when you finish, you can become a chaplain.
That's awesome.
So,
that's super cool.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here, and I'd love to hear about your journey. What brought you into seminary? So you went to Rose-Hulman, like you said, around maybe junior, senior year. What was happening in your life? What was that start of that journey towards the priesthood for you?
Yeah, so it never crossed my mind, growing up, and in college I kind of grew away from my faith, but towards the end of college, especially my senior year, I started coming back to the faith and just had a really big conversion in my life. And a friend, he invited me to go to daily Mass and Eucharistic adoration with him, and that kind of really set my heart on fire. I found really what I was looking for there, and I knew I wanted more of that.
That's excellent. So then you finish up your senior year of college, and then what do you do with what's the next step? Because it sounds like you seminary wasn't really on your radar during that point, even though you're encountering Jesus. It sounds like you're finding a lot of joy in that. But what did that next step look like?
Yeah. So my senior year, I had just commissioned into the Air Force as a second lieutenant, and the Air Force was sending me to pilot training.
Okay.
And I had 8 months between when I commissioned and when I was going to enter active duty. And so during that time, I was continuing just taking some classes, working towards a master's degree. And
that's a pretty competitive field too, trying to get into pilot training, right? That's a pretty competitive thing?
Yeah, I mean, they really like engineers, so I guess I had a foot up. And yeah, you just do well in your physical fitness and everything, get good grades, and so I was extremely excited when I got selected for that my junior year, and I 100% wanted to do that. That was a dream come true. But I guess God had other plans. So.
Yeah, so let's break that open a little bit. How did you hear God's voice in that moment? You were going into pilot training. Everything looked like it was going to be fine. Why don't you speak into that moment? How did you feel the Lord working in your heart, pointing you towards the priesthood?
Yeah. So I already mentioned the first part, which is going to daily Mass and Eucharistic adoration. And so I'd say that was kind of the primary pillar of what changed. Just a greater appreciation for the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, and from that, I would say growing in a relationship with the person of Christ through daily prayer, going to adoration. That was just a huge game changer for me. And finding out that there's more, just added another dimension that I never even really knew about before. So Eucharist and prayer, and from that, I really it had to transform my worldview in terms of where did I come from? Where am I going? And what am I called to do in the present because of that? And I just felt a call to share the gospel with other people, and really this universal call to holiness, and for us to become saints. That was just totally changed what I thought was my purpose in life and how I wanted to go about doing that.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, it's so good to hear like that you went through that moment of like changing your whole worldview, and I think that's beautiful too that you brought in like that personal encounter with Jesus Christ, because I definitely resonate with that myself. Is like, going through my life and really things changed when I encountered Jesus as a person, and everything began to like start feeling clearer, and I could start see like, oh, like maybe the Lord has put in my heart that He wants me to be a priest. So, so how did that? Now it's kind of interesting because you're feeling the Lord calling you to the priesthood, but you've got pilot training coming up. So like, so can you speak into that experience a little bit?
Yeah. So it was kind of like about a year or so, just praying on a daily basis about what God's will for me was, and one of the big things that got it going was I went to a discernment retreat with the conventual Franciscan friars, and over that weekend, their vocation director talked about discerning one's vocation, and that kind of I went to an Catholic elementary school growing up. I'm sure they talked about discerning one's vocation, but it never really hit home until that moment when I was 22 years old, it was on Palm Sunday weekend of my senior year of college in April, and so I was a month away from really going into what I thought was going to be my career. But it kind of just I like opened the horizon. Like I started praying about, Lord, what is your will for me? Because up to that point, when I chose where I wanted to go to college and what career I wanted to go into, is just based on what were my skill sets, what do I enjoy, what do I think is going to be exciting, but I never prayed asking God what His will is for me. And when I started doing that, it really opened up a lot more doors, seminary, religious life, all these different types of things. And so going to adoration every day and praying about what God's will was, and just learning more about the Catholic faith and about the great saints like St. Francis of Assisi was really inspirational to me. All of these things kind of together, along with like getting to know the university minister who is a Catholic priest, and seeing like I could kind of see myself being in his shoes, and he was super joyful and was obviously like really happy with where he was in life, and that really stood out to me, and I wanted to see what was his secret to happiness.
Sure,
and all of these things just started slowly leading me closer to priesthood.
That's beautiful. And then eventually you make the jump.
Yeah, so it was in October of the year after I had graduated and commissioned from college. It was just, I guess, 3 months from when I was entering onto active duty. At that time, I went on a retreat, and yeah, during that retreat, I really wasn't sure where God was calling me to, whether it's to become a pilot, whether it's to become a priest, have a family, or remain celibate as a priest. And so, but that weekend I had just a really big God moment, you might call it, where in Eucharistic adoration, it was just one of the most powerful moments of my life. It was really overpowering, and I felt God, inviting me to surrender everything to Him, and I just really kind of took a leap of faith, and I trusted that God had the best plan for me, like better than anything I could ever plan for myself. And so I left that retreat like knowing that I needed to look more into like diocesan priesthood. And so I contacted my vocation director here in the Diocese of Gary, and now that weekend was just huge for me. So.
Yeah, and here you are, like 4 years later, like we're on the precipice of being ordained deacons next year. So that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I think it's beautiful, and I think so many people can, maybe young men, connect to it, like wanting to pursue something that's really good on one end, and then maybe like the priesthood question is coming on the other. So maybe what advice would you give to those men who kind of are in a situation like you, like, they have something promising, like a promising career or a promising future for them, but like thoughts of the priesthood are coming to their mind, and maybe seminary is becoming more of an option for them. What advice can you say to them to maybe calm the storm that's going in their heart?
Yeah, well, I'd definitely say go to daily mass, Eucharistic adoration. For almost every seminarian and priest I hear from, it seems like those are staples of their vocation story. Falling in love with Jesus in the Eucharist. So that would be one. Developing a daily prayer life is absolutely essential. Reading the Gospels, especially, getting to know the person of Jesus in those Gospels, and maybe learn about a great saint. You know, for me, it was St. Francis of Assisi was truly inspirational for me, but learn about a great saint that maybe he was a priest. St. John Vianney is a wonderful example of a saint to get to know about, and just hear about the absolutely miraculous things that God did through them. I would say all of those things contribute to, you know, informing their worldview and like what our purpose is in life. Those are some of the things I would encourage them to do.
I appreciate it. That's good. And it's so good to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing your journey.
Thank you, Steven.
So if this episode resonated with you as a young man, or resonates with somebody who you think you know who might be called to the priesthood, feel free to like and share this video so we can get Zach's story out. So thank you for watching this episode of Journey, and God bless you.